Hi, everyone. Quick one for you. Make sure you subscribe and like before we start. Thank you. I come home at the usual time. The house smells of dinner, but there's something off. I notice it the second I step through the door. Julia's laughter floats from the kitchen, a sound I haven't heard in months. My pulse quickens. I head toward the noise, a knot forming in my stomach. She's there, leaning against the counter, sipping wine like she hasn't got a care in the world. Emma sits at the kitchen table, eyes glued to her phone. Julia looks up when I walk in, her lips curling into a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "Oh, you're home," she says casually, then takes another sip. Good timing. Something in her tone freezes me in place. "What's going on?" "I'm going out tonight." She sets the glass down, her fingers still around the stem, twisting it. "On a date, actually." I blink. The words don't make sense at first, like they've been spoken in another language. A date? My voice is low, calm, but inside, everything is starting to unravel. Emma looks up sharply from her phone, her brows knitting together. "Mom, what are you talking about?" she asks, confusion lacing her voice. She glances between us, searching for something that makes sense. Julia shrugs. Too casual, too easy. "Well, honey, I thought it was obvious. I need a real man, not your father. You know, someone who can actually make me feel alive." She lets the words hang in the air, and something dark and cold slides down my spine. Emma's face turns pale, her voice shaky. "Are you serious? What, what do you mean? Are you leaving us?" There's panic in her voice now. "Are you leaving Dad?" Julia laughs. Not a nervous laugh, not uncomfortable. No, this one is sharp, cruel. "Leaving? I don't know, maybe. Your father and I, we've been done for a long time. He just doesn't want to admit it." She glances at me, her eyes glinting. "But of course, you knew that, didn't you, Daniel?" I feel the heat rise to my face. I'm stuck between disbelief and rage. I should have seen this coming. The late nights, the whispered phone calls, her coldness in bed. But I didn't, because I chose not to. I ignored the signs, convinced myself it was just a phase, something we could work through. Now it's too late. She's throwing it in my face like it's some kind of game. Emma stands up, her voice rising. "This isn't funny, Mom. Are you really leaving us for some other guy?" There's a crack in her voice that breaks something inside me. I want to protect her, to shield her from this, but I can't. Julia's words are cutting us both to pieces. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Emma," Julia says, rolling her eyes. "Your father's a loser. He can't give me what I need anymore, and I'm not going to waste any more time pretending otherwise." She flashes me a smile, venomous and cold. "I'm going out tonight. Don't wait up." I stare at her, trying to keep my hands from shaking. She's enjoying this, reveling in the pain she's causing. Every word is a knife, and she knows it. "Get out," I finally managed to say, my voice low and deadly. "Just get out." She arches an eyebrow, amused. "Or what?" I don't answer. I can't. My mind is reeling. Julia smirks, her victory complete, and heads for the door without another glance. Her footsteps echo through the house as she leaves, the door slamming behind her. The silence that follows is suffocating. Emma stands frozen, her face a mix of shock and betrayal. "Dad, what just happened?" Her voice is small, fragile. I want to tell her it's going to be okay, that we'll figure this out, but the words stick in my throat because I don't know if it is going to be okay. I walk over to the kitchen table and sit down, my hands gripping the edge of the chair. Everything feels surreal, like the world just shifted under my feet and I'm not sure where I'm standing anymore. The truth is, I've been blind. I've spent years convincing myself that Julie and I could work through whatever it was we were going through. I told myself it was a rough patch, something all marriages face. I didn't want to see how far she had drifted. Now it's too clear. She's not just gone. She's flaunting it, taunting me. Emma sits across from me, her eyes wide, glassy with tears she's trying to hold back. "Dad, what are we going to do?" I don't have an answer. My mind is already racing, but not toward fixing this. No, something darker is stirring inside me. I've never been a man who acts out of rage or impulse. I've spent my life avoiding conflict, keeping the peace. But this is different. Julia's words cut too deep. She didn't just cheat on me. She humiliated me in front of my daughter. I glance at Emma, her innocent face looking for some kind of comfort, and I feel it then. Cold, steely resolve. This isn't going to end the way she thinks. No, Julia's going to regret this. I'm going to make sure of it. The next morning, the house is quiet. Julia hasn't come home yet. I sit at the kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. The events of last night play on repeat in my head. Her words, her laughter, the shock on Emma's face. It all burns into me, twisting something deep inside. I don't feel shattered. I feel sharp, like the edge of a blade that's been honed over years. The weight of it presses on my chest, but it doesn't slow me down. I've never been one to act out of rage. Not my style. No yelling, no smashing things. That's not how I win. I'm thinking, calculating. There's only one way to deal with this, and it's not through anger. It's through control. I take out my phone, staring at it for a second. Part of me wants to smash it, send it flying across the room, but instead I unlock it. I scroll through Julia's recent calls, her texts. I know she's sloppy. She's always been careless, assuming I'm too stupid or too trusting to notice. That's her biggest mistake. I'm not a fool. Her messages are there like breadcrumbs. The name is simple enough, Mark. There's no subtlety in their exchanges, no hidden code. They're cocky, brazen, and in that cockiness, they've underestimated me. I won't underestimate them. I grab my jacket and keys, walking past Emma's room quietly. She's still asleep. She doesn't need to be a part of this. Not yet. Outside, the air is crisp, sharp against my face, and it clears my head. I know what I have to do. I'm going to find out who Mark is, and I'm going to make sure he regrets ever crossing into my life. It doesn't take long to find him. Julia isn't as clever as she thinks. I follow the trail, messages, social media, even a shared location she left on one of our family apps. It's almost laughable how easy it is. My heart pounds, but my head stays clear. Mark works at a gym, one of those upscale places with glass walls and spotless machines. I park across the street, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I watch him through the window. He's everything I expected. Tall, muscular, with that cocky grin plastered on his face. He looks like someone who's used to getting what he wants, someone who thinks he's above the consequences. But not this time. I watch him for a while, mentally taking notes. His routine, the people he talks to, his swagger. I'll learn every detail, every weakness. This isn't about confronting him now. It's about being patient, methodical. You can't rush something like this. Julia, of course, doesn't know I'm here. She's still at work, blissfully unaware that I'm one step ahead of her. I watch him leave the gym, hopping into a sleek car, and I follow from a distance, careful to keep out of sight. He drives to a high-rise apartment building, one of those new ones with glass balconies. He walks in like he owns the place. I don't follow him inside, not yet. I just sit and wait, watching, calculating. When I get home, Julia's already there. She doesn't even look at me as I walk through the door. She's scrolling through her phone, stretched out on the couch like nothing ever happened. I feel my pulse quicken, but I don't let it show, not yet. "How was your date?" I ask, keeping my voice steady, casual. She glances up, a smirk playing at her lips. Jealous? I don't answer. I can feel her watching me, trying to gauge my reaction, but I don't give her the satisfaction. I just grab a beer from the fridge and take a long drink, my mind racing. She thinks she's winning, that I'm still in the dark, but I'm already miles ahead of her. I've been tracking her for days now, watching her movements, monitoring her phone without her knowing. She thinks her secrets are safe, but every text, every call leads me closer to my goal. Julia continues flaunting her affair like a badge of honor, oblivious to the fact that I'm gathering every piece of information I need. Emma stays quiet, avoiding her mother, retreating to her room more often than not. I try to shield her from it all, but I know she senses the storm brewing beneath the surface. She's too smart not to. I follow Julia again the next day. She doesn't even bother hiding it anymore. It's almost like she wants me to see, wants me to suffer. She meets Mark at a restaurant, one of those trendy spots downtown with overpriced cocktails and dim lighting. I watch from a distance, my eyes locked on them through the window. They're laughing, leaning in close like they don't have a care in the world. I study them, memorizing every gesture, every glance. I don't feel rage, not the way most people might. I feel focused, controlled. This is all part of the process. When they leave, I follow again, keeping my distance. I'm not ready to confront them yet, not until I have everything lined up perfectly. I need to know more. I need to understand the full extent of who Mark is, what he's hiding. And I know there's something. A guy like him doesn't stay squeaky clean for long. That night after Julia falls asleep, I take her phone. I've done this a few times now, and she never notices. She's too confident, too secure in her lies. I scroll through her messages again, looking for anything I might have missed. And then I find it. A message from Mark, cryptic but clear enough. We need to talk about the deal. I can't keep covering for you. I freeze reading the message over and over again. My heart pounds, but not out of fear. This is it, the opening I've been waiting for. Mark isn't just some gym rat fling. There's more to this, something deeper, something dangerous. I set the phone down carefully, slipping back into bed beside Julia. She's asleep, her back to me, completely unaware that everything is about to change. I stare at the ceiling, my mind racing. This just got more complicated, but also more interesting. The next day I follow Mark again, this time digging deeper into his life. I find out he's been involved in some shady business deals, likely with dangerous people. It explains the tension in his message to Julia. I start to piece it all together. Mark is in over his head, and now so is she. They think they're untouchable, but I'm about to prove them wrong. I don't just want to expose the affair anymore. That would be too easy, too predictable. I want to take everything from them. I want to ruin them not just as a couple, but as individuals. And now, with Mark's connections to the underworld, I see my chance. I start making my moves. I follow Mark's trail, learning about the people he's dealing with, the illegal activities he's involved in. I gather evidence quietly, carefully, making sure I don't leave any trace of my presence. I don't just want revenge, I want to do this right. And when I'm done, they won't see it coming. Every day, I get closer. Every day, Julia flaunts her affair, unknowingly digging her own grave. And every day I wait, patiently, because when I strike, it will be swift and it will be final. It's late when Julia finally comes home, her hair a mess, the smell of cheap perfume clinging to her skin. She doesn't bother with excuses anymore. She thinks she's won, that I've given up. She's wrong. I'm just waiting for the right moment. I'm in control now, not her, not Mark, me. And they won't know what hit them. I keep watching them day after day, as if observing predators in the wild. Julia thinks she's invincible, untouchable, and Mark has no idea I'm closing in on him, but I'm not going to rush it. This isn't about catching them in the act or having a dramatic confrontation. I'm playing the long game, and the stakes are much higher than they realize. Every night I gather more evidence. Her phone, their text, his cryptic messages about deals and cash transfers. It's clear now, Mark isn't just some gym rat. He's involved in something deeper. Financial scams, laundering money, deals with people who won't take kindly to being double-crossed. Julia is too blind to see it, too caught up in her fantasy of escaping me. I wait, silent, watching them implode from within. It starts with the little things, whispers at the gym, the way Mark looks over his shoulder when he thinks no one's watching. Julia's late-night texts become more frantic, more insecure. She thinks she's playing both sides, keeping me at bay while holding on to Mark. But she's just another pawn in a game she doesn't understand. I put the first phase into motion by spreading a few rumors. Anonymous messages, a well-placed email to Mark's associates. Simple things, small cracks in his shiny facade. The kind of thing that makes people second-guess who they're working with. I don't need to confront him directly. That's too risky, too loud. I want him to unravel quietly, to watch his world crumble, piece by piece, without ever knowing who's behind it. It works, slowly, but it works. I see it in his eyes when he meets Julia now. Paranoia creeping in, his hands twitching when his phone buzzes. He's waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it will, soon enough. Julia, of course, has no idea. She's more interested in flaunting her new life, spending more time at Mark's place, ignoring the growing tension at home. Every night she comes home later and later, smelling of cheap perfume and sweat. I don't confront her, not yet. I let her think I'm too weak to do anything, that I'm just a loser she's leaving behind. But every time she walks through the door, I feel my grip tighten. She doesn't realize I've already planted the seeds of her destruction. The little comments I've started slipping into our conversations, the way I've carefully let her believe that Mark might not be as trustworthy as she thinks, it's working. She's starting to doubt him, starting to question why he's so secretive, why he never talks about his business. It's almost too easy. Watching her unravel is the sweetest part. Her confidence, the smirk she used to wear so proudly, it's fading. She still tries to act like she's in control, but I see the cracks forming. And once the cracks are there, they only get wider. One night, Julia comes home drunk. Stumbling through the door, she laughs, but it's hollow, brittle. She kicks off her shoes and collapses on the couch, staring up at the ceiling. Mark's not answering his phone, she slurs. Probably with some other girl. Maybe I should have expected that, huh? She laughs again, but there's no joy in it. I don't say anything. I just watch her. The way she avoids looking at me. The way her fingers twitch around the empty wine glass. She's unraveling faster than I anticipated. She's starting to see Mark for what he is, and it terrifies her. Maybe I'm the idiot, she mutters, her voice low. Maybe he's just using me. I let her words hang in the air, not responding, letting her own doubt gnaw at her. The next morning, she doesn't remember much, or pretends not to. She's colder now, more distant, and I see the wheels turning in her mind. She's wondering if she made a mistake, if Mark is really her escape or just another trap. Meanwhile, Mark's world is falling apart. I've been feeding his associates just enough information to make him look suspicious. A few missed payments, a couple of deals that didn't go as planned, all of it orchestrated by me, quietly and without a trace. I'm patient, methodical. I watch him grow more desperate, more erratic. He's starting to sweat, starting to make mistakes. And every time he does, I'm there, pulling the strings tighter. Julia doesn't know what's happening, not really, but she feels it. She knows something is wrong, and that's enough. I see it in her eyes when she comes home, the way she looks at me now with uncertainty. She doesn't trust Mark anymore, but she doesn't trust me either. She's caught between us, and that's exactly where I want her. A week later, Mark confronts Julia at the gym. I watch from across the street, hidden in the shadows as they argue outside. He's angry, his voice raised while she tries to calm him down, her hands fluttering nervously. He's blaming her for something, probably the leaks I planted. It's getting to him, he's spiraling, and she's too scared to leave him now. I knew this would happen. Julia's always been weak when it comes to men like Mark. She's drawn to their power, but the second things get complicated, she crumbles. And now she's trapped in the mess she helped create. I see them part ways, Julia storming off to her car, tears in her eyes. Mark slams his fist into the wall before walking back into the gym. I wait until they're gone, then drive home. Everything is falling into place. At home, Julia is pacing the living room, her phone clutched in her hand. She's texting someone, probably Mark, trying to patch things up. I sit on the couch pretending to read, watching her out of the corner of my eye. Something's wrong, she says suddenly, her voice tight with fear. Mark's been acting strange. I think he's in trouble. I look up, feigning concern. What kind of trouble? She hesitates, biting her lip. I don't know. He won't tell me. He's been distant, angry, like he's hiding something. I nod, keeping my expression neutral. Maybe you should stay away from him, Julia. If he's involved in something dangerous, it's not worth it. She glares at me, her anger flaring up. You don't know anything about him. But I do, more than she realizes, and that's why she's afraid. She's starting to see that Mark isn't the escape she thought he was. He's a liability, and soon he'll be her downfall. The next few days, I ramp up my efforts. I feed more information to Mark's associates, letting them think he's been skimming off the top, that he's been playing both sides. It doesn't take much, just a few whispers, a couple of strategically placed phone calls. By the end of the week, Mark is a marked man, and he doesn't even know it yet. Julia is spiraling too. She's pulling away from Mark, sensing the danger but not knowing how to escape. She's scared, unsure of who to trust. She comes home earlier now, doesn't talk about Mark as much. I can see the doubt in her eyes, the way she avoids looking at me, like she knows I've seen through her. But I'm not done yet, not even close. One evening while Julia's out, I get a call from an unknown number. I hesitate for a second before answering. Who is this? The voice on the other end is sharp, clipped. I don't answer right away, letting the silence hang. You've been feeding me information, the voice continues, about Mark. Who are you? I smile, feeling the rush of control surge through me. Just someone who wants to see things set right. The man on the other end chuckles, but it's a cold sound. You know what's going to happen to him, don't you? I'm counting on it. There's a pause, then the line goes dead. I sit back, the weight of it all settling on my chest. I'm not afraid. I've played my part perfectly, and now the pieces are in motion. Mark's days are numbered, and Julia, well, she's about to lose everything. The following night, Julia confronts me. I'm in the kitchen, making dinner, when she storms in, her face pale, her hands shaking. Did you do something? She asked, her voice trembling. I turned to face her, raising an eyebrow. What are you talking about? Mark, he's in trouble. Real trouble. I think someone's after him. I shrug, turning back to the stove. Maybe you should have thought about that before you got involved with him. Her eyes widen, and for the first time, I see real fear in them. She's starting to realize just how deep she's in, how far I've gone. But she's too late. I didn't mean for this to happen, she whispers, her voice cracking. I glance at her over my shoulder, my expression cold. Neither did I, Julia. But here we are. She opens her mouth to say something, but the words die in her throat. She knows it's over. Mark is finished, and soon she will be too. Mark disappears 2 days later. No one knows where he went, but I do. His associates found him, just like I planned. Julia is frantic, calling his phone every hour, but it goes straight to voicemail. She's losing it, pacing the house, her hands trembling as she tries to figure out what to do. And I wait, watching her crumble, knowing the final blow is coming. A week later, it happens. Julia's name is splashed across the news. Mark's body was found in a warehouse, and she's implicated in his financial crimes. The police show up at the house, and I watch as they take her away in handcuffs, her face pale and tear-streaked. She screams for me, but I just stand there, watching in silence. She's ruined, just like I planned. And I feel nothing. The game is over. Everything is unraveling. Mark's paranoia has taken over. He doesn't trust anyone anymore. Not even Julia. I've made sure of that. The whispers I planted, the deals I sabotaged, they're eating away at him. He's slipping, and it's only a matter of time before his world collapses. Julia is caught in the middle, her confidence shattered. She still tries to keep up appearances, but the cracks are showing. She avoids looking at me, avoids any real conversation, but her eyes dart around nervously when she's home. I've let her doubt grow, feeding it slowly with careful comments, subtle shifts in our interactions. I don't need to say much, just enough to let her feel the walls closing in. She's been spending less time with Mark, pulling back, trying to figure out if he's the escape she once believed. I can see it in her eyes when she's home. She's scared. She doesn't know who to trust anymore, and that's exactly where I need her. The phone rings late one night. I'm in the living room watching the fire crackle, a glass of whiskey in my hand. Julia's upstairs, locked in our bedroom. It's Mark. I let it ring a few times, savoring the moment before I pick up. "What?" I answer, keeping my voice low, calm. There's a long pause on the other end, just the sound of his breathing. "You did this, didn't you?" I smile, swirling the whiskey in my glass. "I don't know what you're talking about. You think I'm stupid?" His voice is shaking now, barely controlled anger. The deals, the money, everything's falling apart. Someone's been feeding my partner's lies, and I know it's you. I don't respond. Silence is more powerful here, letting him spiral. He's unraveling, and all I need to do is wait. "If you think you can take me down," he snarls, "you've got another thing coming. I'm not going down without a fight." I end the call without another word, letting him stew in his own paranoia. He's scared, desperate. I've pushed him to the edge, and now it's time to tip him over. The next morning, Julia comes downstairs looking like she hasn't slept in days. Her hair is a mess, her skin pale. She's been avoiding me more, but today she hesitates at the kitchen doorway, glancing at me. "Mark's in trouble," she says quietly, her voice almost trembling. I set down my coffee and look at her, pretending to be surprised. "What kind of trouble?" She shifts uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. "He thinks someone's trying to take him down. His business, it's falling apart. He doesn't know who to trust." I lean back in my chair, studying her, and you? Do you trust him? Her eyes flash with doubt, and I know I've hit a nerve. She's on the fence, unsure whether to stay by Mark's side or run. "I don't know," she whispers. I stand up, walking over to her slowly, letting the silence fill the space between us. When I stop in front of her, I tilt her chin up so she has no choice but to meet my gaze. "Then maybe it's time you think about what's best for you." For a moment, she doesn't move, just stares up at me, her breath shallow. I can feel the tension radiating off her, the conflict in her eyes. She's caught, and I know she's starting to see it. She pulls away, turning her back to me, and I let her go. I don't need to push her further. The plan is already in motion. The final pieces are falling into place. I've leaked more information to Mark's associates, making sure they believe he's been skimming off the top. The rumors are enough to trigger action. Mark's reputation is on the line, and in his world, there's no room for weakness. I've also made sure Julia is implicated in one of his financial deals, something subtle enough that it won't get her arrested right away, but just enough to tie her to his downfall. It's all set up perfectly, a web I've woven slowly and methodically. I'm sitting in the living room again when Julia finally confronts me. She's shaking, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. You've been doing something, haven't you?" she asks, her voice trembling. This, this isn't just happening on its own." I don't respond right away. I just look at her, letting the silence stretch between us, watching the fear grow in her eyes. "Daniel, please," she whispers, stepping closer. "If you're involved in this, you have to stop. He's dangerous." I stand slowly, setting down my drink. I know exactly who Mark is. Her eyes widen and I see the realization hit her. She's known for a while that I'm not as oblivious as she wanted to believe. But now she's faced with the truth. She steps back, fear flickering across her face. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispers. "Neither did I reply, my voice cold. She stares at me for a long moment, then turns and rushes out of the room, her footsteps echoing through the house. I don't follow. I don't need to. She's already trapped. Mark tries to run, just like I expected. He's desperate now, scrambling to save himself. I get the call the next day. He's gone underground, trying to escape the heat from his associates. They're after him, and it's only a matter of time before they find him. Julia knows something's wrong. She's been trying to contact him, but he's not answering. The tension is suffocating, and I can see her unraveling right in front of me. She's starting to realize that her escape plan with Mark is crumbling, that she's tied to his sinking ship. I let it play out. I don't intervene, don't offer her any help. She's on her own, and she knows it. The fear in her eyes is growing, and she's running out of options. The final blow comes a few days later. Mark is found and it's not pretty. His body is discovered in a warehouse, and the news is all over the headlines. The details are vague, but it's clear enough. Mark crossed the wrong people, and they made sure he paid for it. Julia is frantic, pacing the house, her phone clutched in her hand as she tries to make sense of everything. She doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to escape the mess she's in. I watch her from a distance, knowing that this is the moment I've been waiting for. The police show up the next morning. They knock on the door, and I step aside as they walk in. Julia's face drains of color as they tell her she's under investigation for her involvement in Mark's financial dealings. She tries to argue to deny it, but the evidence is too strong. I made sure of that. They take her away in handcuffs, and I stand in the doorway, watching as she's led to the police car. Her eyes meet mine for a brief moment, and I see the realization in them, the knowledge that I'm behind it all. She screams my name, but I don't respond. I just watch as they drive away, leaving me alone in the house. The aftermath is quieter than I expected. Emma is devastated, of course. She's struggling to understand why her mother is in jail, why everything has fallen apart. I try to shield her from the worst of it, but I know she's beginning to piece things together. She hasn't asked me directly, but I can see it in her eyes. The doubt, the suspicion. She's starting to wonder if I had something to do with all of this, if I'm not as innocent as I've been pretending to be. I don't know how long I can keep the truth from her. Part of me doesn't want to. I've gone too far to back out now, and the weight of everything I've done, it is starting to settle in. Was it worth it? I tell myself it was. Julia and Mark got what they deserved. They betrayed me, humiliated me, and I made sure they paid for it. But as I sit alone in the living room, the silence pressing down on me, I can't shake the feeling that I've lost something too. The house feels empty without Julia. I should be glad she's gone, that I've finally gotten my revenge. But instead, there's a hollow ache in my chest, a gnawing sense of emptiness that I can't ignore. Emma spends more time at her friend's house these days. She doesn't talk to me as much, doesn't confide in me like she used to. I've won my revenge, but I'm starting to realize that I've lost something far more precious in the process. Late at night, when the house is quiet and dark, I think about everything that's happened. I think about Julia, about Mark, about the cold, calculated steps I took to destroy them both. I don't regret what I did. I had to do it. But now that it's over, I'm left with the consequences, the weight of my actions, the realization that revenge doesn't bring peace. I've burned everything to the ground, and now I'm standing in the ashes, wondering what's left. And I'm not sure if there's enough to rebuild. Mark is dead. Julia is in prison. It should feel like victory, but it doesn't. The chaos I set in motion continues to ripple through everything, and I'm standing in the wreckage, wondering if this was what I wanted after all. Emma hasn't spoken to me since the arrest. She's devastated, and it's not just about losing her mother. I see the way she looks at me, like I'm a stranger. I've tried to talk to her, tried to explain, but there's nothing I can say that will make it right. She blames me for everything. Maybe she's right. I sit at the kitchen table most nights, staring at the empty seat where Julia used to sit. The house is quiet, too quiet, and every minute feels heavier than the last. I should feel a sense of closure. I planned every move, orchestrated every downfall. But now that it's over, all I'm left with is silence. I go through the motions, trying to hold things together for Emma, but she barely acknowledges me, staying locked in her room or at her friend's house. I can't blame her for pulling away. I wanted revenge, and I got it. But I didn't realize how much it would cost. The neighbors talk. I see the way they look at me when I go outside to get the mail or when I pass them on the street. They don't say it to my face, but I can feel their judgment. The whispers about Julia's affair, Mark's death, the scandal. Everyone's waiting for the next piece to fall. They don't know the whole story, of course. They don't know what I did, but they know enough to cast their shadows. I ignore it. I've gotten good at pretending not to care what people think, but the truth is it's getting harder. The weight of everything I've done is pressing down on me, and I don't know how to shake it. The media has been relentless. Julia's involvement in Mark's financial dealings made the headlines, and every day there's another story about the ongoing investigation. They've tied her to everything now. Money laundering, fraud. The charges are stacking up. Her lawyer is trying to cut a deal, but it's clear that Julia is going to be locked away for a long time. I should feel satisfied, knowing she's finally facing the consequences of her betrayal. But all I feel is emptiness. One night I'm sitting on the porch, staring out at the darkened street, when Emma comes out of the house. She stands in the doorway for a moment, hesitant, and then steps onto the porch, sitting down next to me. She doesn't say anything, just wraps her arms around her knees and stares straight ahead. We sit in silence for a while, the weight of everything hanging between us. "Why didn't you stop it?" she finally asks, her voice quiet but heavy with accusation. I know what she's asking. She's not talking about the affair or the scandal. She's asking why I let it get this far, why I didn't stop before everything fell apart. I couldn't, I say, my voice low. I wanted her to pay. I wanted him to pay. Emma turns to look at me, her eyes searching mine. You didn't just want them to pay. You wanted to destroy them. I don't deny it. There's no point. She's right. Why? She asks, her voice cracking. Why did you have to ruin everything? I run a hand through my hair, the weight of her question pressing on my chest. Because I couldn't live with it, I say. I couldn't live with what she did to me, to us. I couldn't let her get away with it. Emma shakes her head, tears welling up in her eyes. And now we're the ones who are paying for it. Her words cut deep, sharper than anything Julia ever said. Emma stands up, wiping her eyes. I don't know if I can stay here anymore, she whispers, her voice breaking. I need to get away from all of this. I watch her walk back into the house, her figure disappearing into the darkness. The door closes behind her, and I'm left alone on the porch, the sound of the wind rustling through the trees the only thing breaking the silence. The next morning, Emma is gone. She left a note on the kitchen table telling me she's staying with her friend for a while. I expected this. I knew she was going to leave, but seeing the empty house now, it feels like everything is closing in. I can't stop thinking about what she said. She's right. I didn't just destroy Julia and Mark. I destroyed everything. I thought revenge would give me peace, but all it's done is leave me standing in the ashes of what used to be my life. The house is too quiet without Emma. I can't stand the silence anymore. I walk from room to room, aimless, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I try to distract myself with work, with cleaning, with anything that will keep my mind off the emptiness. But it's useless. I see Julia's face in every corner of the house, hear her voice echoing through the rooms. She may be in prison, but she's still here, haunting me, reminding me of what I did. Days pass and Emma doesn't come home. I text her, trying to reach out, but she doesn't respond. I want to explain, to tell her why I did everything, but I know it won't matter. I've lost her just like I lost Julia. I thought revenge would make things better, that it would bring me closure. But now all I feel is the weight of the destruction I caused. The revenge I sought so carefully, so meticulously, has taken more from me than I ever anticipated. I've tried to convince myself that it was worth it, that Julia and Mark deserved everything they got, and maybe they did. But the cost was too high. I sit in the living room staring at the empty space where the family I once had used to gather. It feels like a lifetime ago, before everything fell apart. I wonder if I could have stopped this, if I could have let go of my need for revenge before it consumed me. But I didn't, and now I'm left with nothing. Julia's lawyer calls one afternoon. He's trying to negotiate a plea deal, but things aren't looking good for her. The evidence is overwhelming, and the prosecutor isn't interested in cutting any deals. I listen to him talk, my mind drifting. I don't care anymore. Julia's fate is sealed, and no amount of legal maneuvering is going to change that. I hang up feeling a strange sense of finality. Julia's story is over. I ended it. But mine isn't. I have to live with the consequences of everything I did, and that's harder than I expected. Weeks pass and I'm still here, still waiting for some sense of resolution. Emma hasn't come home. She's still staying with her friend, and I've stopped trying to reach out. She needs space, and I can't blame her for wanting to get away from me. I've started going for long walks, trying to clear my head, trying to make sense of what comes next. But every time I step outside, I feel the weight of the neighbor's eyes on me, the whispers that follow wherever I go. I can't escape the judgment, can't escape the reminder of everything I've done. I thought revenge would bring me peace. I thought it would give me a sense of justice, but it hasn't. It's only left me standing in the ruins of my life, wondering if there's anything left to rebuild. One night, I get a call from Emma. It's late, and I'm half asleep when the phone rings. I fumble for it, my heart racing as I see her name on the screen. "Dad," she says, her voice soft, hesitant. I sit up, gripping the phone tightly. "Emma, are you okay?" There's a long pause on the other end, and for a moment, I think she's going to hang up. But then she speaks again, her voice thicker with emotion. "I'm not ready to come home, not yet, but I just wanted you to know that I'm okay." Relief floods through me, but it's as tempered by the sadness in her voice. "I understand," I say quietly. "Take your time. I just, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you," she says, her voice trembling. "But I wanted you to know that I'm trying." I close my eyes, feeling the weight of her words settle over me. "I'm sorry, Emma," I whisper, "for everything." There's another long pause, and then she hangs up. I sit there in the darkness, holding the phone, the silence pressing in around me. I don't know if Emma will ever come back or if she'll ever forgive me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to move on from everything I've done, but I have to try. There's nothing else left. I've learned that revenge doesn't bring peace. It only leaves destruction in its wake. And now I'm left to pick up the pieces, hoping that one day I'll be able to rebuild something from the ruins. Emma doesn't come home for days. I'm left in a house that feels more empty than ever. No laughter, no conversation, just silence. It's the quiet that starts to eat at me. The kind of silence that digs into your chest, that makes everything feel heavier. My mind replays everything I've done over and over. Each move, each choice, each moment I thought I was in control. But control is a funny thing. I thought I had it. I thought I was directing this whole game, every piece on the board moving exactly where I wanted. But now, sitting in this empty house, I'm not so sure. Emma's absence hits me harder than Julia's betrayal ever did. There's something final about it. As if she's already decided, already weighed me in her mind and found me lacking. I try to reach out to her again, but her responses are short, distant. She's staying with a friend, and that's all I need to know. The space between us feels like it's growing by the hour, and I don't know how to stop it. For the first time since this all started, I feel powerless. I've won. Julia's in prison and Mark is dead. I destroyed them both, but it doesn't feel like a victory. I used to think revenge would fill the hole, that it would make me feel whole again. But now it just feels hollow. I sit at the table, staring at the mess of papers I've been reviewing. Legal documents, statements, everything they've gathered on Julia. Her trial is coming up, and the prosecution has everything they need. Fraud, money laundering. They've tied her to Mark's entire operation. I made sure of that. The evidence I planted was flawless, just enough to connect her to every dirty deal Mark ever made. And now she's going to pay for it. But it doesn't feel like enough. She calls sometimes from prison. The first time I let it ring, curious to see if she'd leave a message. She didn't. But the next time I picked up, I wanted to hear what she had to say. She was quiet for a moment, then her voice broke through, low and cold. "You did this." I didn't respond. "You think you're clever, Daniel, but you're going to pay for what you've done." I chuckled then because the threat sounded so hollow. She was behind bars, her life ruined, and I was free. What could she possibly do to me? But now, days later, her words replay in my mind. They linger there, gnawing at the edges of my thoughts. I can't shake the feeling that she isn't finished with me yet. I try to distract myself. Work, chores, anything to avoid the sinking feeling that I'm not as in control as I thought. But nothing helps. The guilt sits there, heavy and unmoving. I ruined her, yes, I destroyed Mark. But in the process, I've wrecked my own life. The person I did it for, Emma, won't even look me in the eyes anymore. She's slipping away from me, and I don't know how to stop her. The phone rings again. Julia. I hesitate before answering. What do you want? My voice is steady, but I can hear the edge in it. You think this is over? She sneers. It's not. I've been talking to Emma. I freeze. My grip on the phone tightens. What the hell are you talking about? She laughs, low and bitter. You didn't think I'd just sit here, did you? She's been visiting me, talking to me. She knows what you did, Daniel. All of it. My heart pounds in my chest. You're lying. Oh no, she says, her voice dripping with satisfaction. She's starting to see the truth. You thought you could destroy me, but you didn't think about what it would cost you. Emma's smart. She knows you're not the hero in this story. The line goes dead before I can respond. I slam the phone down, my mind racing. Is it true? Has Emma been visiting her? It doesn't seem possible. Emma hates Julia for what she did, for leaving us, for betraying me. She wouldn't, would she? But doubt creeps in. If there's one thing I've learned in all of this, it's that people are never as predictable as you think. And Emma might want answers, answers that I can't give her. The next few days pass in a blur. I try calling Emma, but she doesn't answer. My messages go unread. The distance between us feels wider than ever. I'm drowning in the silence, in the not knowing. Then one evening I hear the front door open. I rush to the hallway, my heart leaping in my chest. Emma stands there, her expression unreadable. She's holding a bag, and I can tell by the look on her face that this isn't just a visit. I need to talk to you, she says quietly. I nod, stepping aside as she walks past me into the living room. She sets the bag down by the door and sits on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. What's going on? I ask, my voice tentative. She looks up at me, her eyes filled with something I can't quite place. I went to see Mom. My stomach drops, but I force myself to stay calm. Why? Because I needed to hear her side of the story. Her voice is steady, but I can see the tension in her posture. She told me things you didn't tell me. I swallow hard. Emma, your mother is trying to manipulate you. She said you set her up, Emma continues, ignoring my words. That you planted evidence to get her arrested, is that true? I can feel the room closing in around me. I've always known this moment was coming, but now that it's here, I don't know what to say. I can see the hurt in her eyes, the doubt, and it cuts deeper than anything Julia ever did. Emma, I begin, but the words stick in my throat. Is it true? She repeats, her voice rising. Did you frame her? I sit down slowly, rubbing my hands over my face. There's no way out of this. I can't lie to her, not anymore. I look up, meeting her gaze. Yes, her face crumples, and she lets out a small gasp, like the air has been knocked out of her. Why would you do that? Because she deserved it, I say, my voice cracking with the weight of it. She betrayed us. She humiliated me. I couldn't just let her get away with it. Emma shakes her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. You didn't just ruin her, Dad. You ruined everything. I did it for us, I plead, my voice desperate now. I did it to protect you. No, you did it for yourself, she snaps. This was never about me. It was about your pride, your anger. The truth of her words hits me like a punch to the gut. I thought I was in control. I thought I was doing this for her, for our family. But now, looking at her, I realize I've been fooling myself all along. I'm sorry, I whisper, my voice breaking. I'm so sorry, Emma. She wipes her tears, her face hardening. I'm leaving. I feel the ground shift beneath me. What? I need to get away from here, from you, from everything. She stands up, grabbing her bag. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for what you did. Panic surges through me. Emma, please, don't go. We can fix this. But she's already at the door. She pauses, her hand on the doorknob, and looks back at me, her eyes filled with pain. I'm sorry, Dad, but I can't stay here anymore. The door closes behind her, and I'm left standing in the empty living room, the silence crashing down around me like a wave. I don't know how long I stand there staring at the door. Time seems to stretch, the weight of what just happened sinking in. Emma is gone. And this time it feels final. I sink onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. This is what I wanted, wasn't it? To destroy Julia, to get revenge. But in the process, I've destroyed the only thing that ever mattered. The silence is deafening, and for the first time, I feel the full weight of what I've done. I thought revenge would give me control, would make me feel powerful. But now, sitting in this empty house, I realize that it's cost me everything. I've lost Julia, I've lost Emma, and I've lost myself. The days blurred together after that. I go through the motions, but everything feels hollow. I barely sleep, and when I do, it's fitful, filled with nightmares of Julia, of Emma, of everything falling apart. I try calling Emma again, but she doesn't answer. I know she's safe. She's with friends. But the distance between us feels insurmountable. One night, I sit down at the kitchen table and pull out a notebook. I start writing. I don't know what else to do. I write everything. What I did, why I did it, the truth, all of it. I don't know if Emma will ever read it, but I need to get it out. I need her to know that as much as I've destroyed, I never meant to lose her. The phone rings again. I hesitate before answering. It's Julia. You're alone now, aren't you? She asks, her voice dripping with satisfaction. I close my eyes, the weight of it all crashing down on me. Yes. Her laughter echoes through the line, cold and bitter. I told you, Daniel, you thought you could destroy me, but you only destroyed yourself. I hang up, the sound of her voice lingering in the silence. She's right. I sit at the kitchen table, the silence stretching long into the evening. The house feels empty now, stripped of the life it once had. Emma is gone. She hasn't contacted me since she walked out that day. The phone remains silent, each moment that passes only deepening the chasm between us. I stare at the remnants of what my life used to be, the scattered memories haunting the space around me. A family once lived here. Now it's just me and the consequences of everything I did. I thought revenge would bring me closure, some sense of finality. I believed that if I could just destroy Julia and Mark, I'd feel whole again. But that isn't what happened. What's left in the wake of my carefully plotted vengeance is a hollow emptiness, a life fractured beyond repair. I've thought about calling Emma, but every time I reach for the phone, I stop. What could I possibly say to her that would make things right? She knows everything now. I didn't just ruin Julia, I destroyed us. I can't erase the betrayal, the anger, the pain I've caused her. I wonder if she'll ever be able to look at me without seeing the man who tore her family apart. My thoughts drift to Julia. I haven't heard from her in a few weeks, but I know she's not done with me. She's always been calculating, and prison won't change that. She may be behind bars, but her presence lingers, like a shadow I can't shake. I can still hear her voice from that last phone call, taunting me, reminding me that even though I think I've won, she's not finished. The papers spread across the table are a testament to everything that's happened. The legal battles, the investigations, the press coverage. My life has become a public spectacle, picked apart by strangers who don't know the full story. But that doesn't matter. The truth as I once knew it has been twisted and distorted. Even I can't see it clearly anymore. I stand up, pacing the room, trying to shake the restless energy that's been gnawing at me for days. The weight of my choices hangs over me, and I can't seem to outrun it. Every step I took, every move I made was calculated. I thought I was in control. But now, with everything crumbling around me, I realize I was just as much a pawn as anyone else. I moved to the window, staring out at the darkened street. The quiet suburban life I built is a distant memory now. My neighbors avoid me, their polite smiles replaced with whispers and sidelong glances. I'm the man whose wife is in prison, whose life unraveled in the most spectacularly public way. They don't know the truth, but they've filled in the gaps with their own stories. I close my eyes, the image of Emma's face swimming into view. I don't know where she is or if she'll ever come back. I don't know if she'll ever forgive me. The thought of losing her, of the silence between us stretching on indefinitely, is unbearable. I take a deep breath, pulling out the notebook I've been writing in for weeks. It's filled with apologies I'll never send, explanations that won't matter. But it's all I have left. I flip through the pages, my words echoing back at me, hollow and inadequate. The truth is, I did this to myself. My revenge wasn't about justice or protecting Emma. It was about my pride, my need to hurt Julia as deeply as she hurt me. I let that anger consume me, and now I'm paying the price. I thought I could control the outcome, but control is an illusion. In the end, I've lost everything. I stare down at the final page, the words blurring together as exhaustion pulls at me. I've written everything I can, but it won't change the past. It won't bring Emma back or undo the damage I've done. All I can do now is wait. Wait and hope that somehow she'll find her way back to me. But even as I hope, there's a part of me that knows it might never happen. Weeks pass, and the emptiness in the house grows heavier. I go through the motions, but it feels like I'm just passing time, waiting for something that might never come. The loneliness is suffocating, but I can't escape it. I've built this cage for myself, brick by brick, and now I'm trapped inside. Then one afternoon, the phone rings. My heart leaps into my throat as I glance at the screen. Emma. I answer quickly, my voice catching as I say her name. Dad, she says quietly. There's a pause, the silence stretching between us. I've been thinking. My chest tightens. I don't know what's coming, but I brace myself. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for what you did, she continues, her voice steady but fragile. But I need to try, for myself. I swallow hard, the relief crashing over me like a wave. I'm sorry, Emma. For everything. There's another pause, and I can hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I'm not ready to come home yet, she says softly. But I'll call. I'll stay in touch. It's not everything I hoped for, but it's something. It's a start. Take all the time you need, I say, my voice breaking. I will, she replies. And then the line goes dead. I sit there, the phone still in my hand, staring at the empty house around me. The silence feels different now, less suffocating, more bearable. There's a glimmer of hope, faint but there. Maybe Emma will come back. Maybe we'll find a way to rebuild, to heal. But I know it won't be easy. The scars of everything that's happened will stay with us. And Julia, she may still have one last move to make. She's not the type to let things go, and I can feel her lurking in the background, waiting for her chance. For now, though, I have to focus on what's in front of me. Emma, myself, the fragile beginnings of something that might one day resemble peace. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. Revenge doesn't bring closure. It only opens new wounds. And healing those wounds will be the hardest thing I've ever done.